Okay, welcome. This is the answer key portion to the Check Your Understanding Voting Rights for Women, or the Road to the Vote, depending on which title you're looking at, assignment. This was definitely a big leaping off point in terms of online research. This definitely would have been easier to accomplish in class if I were able to be there with you consistently for 40 minutes every day. So I do appreciate some of the frustrations that were being expressed. Hopefully that you watched the video that I had posted about last week that detailed all of the tips and tricks to doing research online. If not, that's okay. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go over this question by question. I'm going to show you where I found the information for these questions, as well as some of the thought process behind how you could find the information yourself. So you're welcome to go through and adjust your answers, resubmit for a perfect 100%. I would rather you watch the video and do that than not watch this at all. And we will get underway. So I've got my site open. I've clicked on this website, and again, it is a huge hub. And the first goal of the assignment was to let you explore, because not everything has to be learning just to answer Mr. Hopper's questions. The instructions for the first day were just to explore some of these concepts so you could gather the information yourself for finding out what happened about 100 years ago. About half of you in my grade 5-6 social studies class are women. And whether you're male or female, the history of people who were not given the right to vote because of something so trivial is definitely worth learning in our country. So here I am. Question one says, what were the names of the famous five? So again, you can find the answers to this in a couple of places. I did give a video tutorial, and in our meetings when we met, I did mention that this is something that might require more than a single click. So I see famous five in the question. I see famous five as one of the links I can go to get some information. So here I go. Now again, when I get here, this is a very up-to-date page. The Famous Five Foundation is a foundation based off of these people, this statue. I walked past this statue when I was in Ottawa quite a bit. So I'm going to instead look at this picture and notice, oh, the Famous Five, the women. Well, let's take a look. Maybe this will take us somewhere. Boom, right here. The Famous Five, the names of them are right here. So I'm going to take that. I'm just going to copy it. Now I want to make this a full sentence for my assignment, but because this is the answer key, I'm just going to take those and probably shrink them. But I have the name of the famous five right here for you to see. Where were the famous five from? This was one that gave a lot of people some trouble. So they maybe have found the names, or they saw me in a video point out the names. These five Albertan women. So if you used this site to get those five names, right underneath it says five Albertan women. So that's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything more specific in terms of towns or city names. Again, you would use a full sentence for that answer. We're going to find another place where that is found, and then we're going to move on to question 3. So if you go down here, defined as persons, that's our keyword to kind of go back to this main site and go, hey, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure one of those links that you mentioned deals with persons. And sure enough, if I wanted to, I could click on Famous Five here, or I could go, hey, the persons case, because that's mentioned up there as well. So let's click on persons case. So down here, I'm going to go, and what I was giving people advice for, because the question, specifically question 2, deals with the location name, I'm going through line by line, and I'm only stopping if I think I see a location name. So I know Canada's too generic. Canada, okay, cool. Canada, 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 British North America. Nope. No, 1927, 5 women. Oh, hold on. Can I find a location name? Find a location name. Canada from Alberta. So that's what I'm doing, and that's not me speeding up the process or exaggerating. When I'm skimming for information, I'm trying my best to remember the key word of the question and then use my eyes to kind of skim over all of this stuff. If I had the time, all of this explains the famous five, which is very worth reading. But for the sake of the question, here I have those five names again. And shortly thereafter, I have the only place name on this entire web page that isn't Canada or British North America. And that's where we go. I may even go back a sentence and read it to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, but that's how I found that answer. All right. Question 3. Were women allowed to vote at all before 1918? Why or why not? So that word before is giving me a bit of a tip. Again, in our meetings, I was highlighting a few of these sites where the information was easy to find, as well as in the video I posted last week. And I'm now going to see that word before, and I'm going to think timeline. Mr. Hopper showed me a timeline, and if I did my own exploring, there's a nice timeline right here. So off I go. The question says, before 1918, could women vote? Why or why not? So I'm first going to go to 1918. Boom. And in 1918, on May the 24th, the act to confer the electoral franchise upon women. That may come back to us in another question. So before that, we've got another 1918, 1917, Military Voters Act. You can spend some time pausing the video reading the highlighted text, but it does give women a special privilege, not exactly a right, unfortunately, at this point, to vote if they are serving in the military. On the same day, a different privilege was granted for women to vote if they were related to or married to someone who was serving in the war. Before that, nothing giving women the right to vote. So the answer to question 4 is yes, they had to serve the military or be related, pardon my spelling, married to someone serving in the war. Great. Were all women given all voting rights in 1918? Why or why not? So now I want to look after. 1918 is a big year. They finally got it. Unfortunately, notice that in 1919, in New Brunswick, provincially until 1919, women still couldn't vote in provincial elections. This happened for a couple of reasons. One of them was that provinces didn't always like to agree with the federal government. The other one is that sometimes there wasn't a provincial election in 1918, which means there's no sense changing the rules, since changing the rules doesn't change anything until the election. So New Brunswick, the Yukon, well, they just had an ordinance. Newfoundland and Labrador, which was not a part of Canada officially at this point, amended theirs to allow women to vote. 1940, Quebec was the last province to allow women to vote in their provincial election and to be eligible as candidates. So 22 years after the country had decided on it, Quebec was the last province to decide on it. So that was one reason. If we scroll all the way down to the end, we also notice that First Nations people, the Aboriginal people, were not given voting rights or equal voting rights until 1960. So when it comes to the question being asked, were all women instantly given all voting rights in 1918? The answer is no. Provinces still had to give women XW voting rights. Which province was the first to give women the right to vote? Which province was the last? We just covered which one was the last, but if we go all the way up to 1916, Manitoba, go us, first province. So Manitoba was the first, Quebec was the last. Were women the only group of people to have to fight for fair voting rights? No. There are other websites that detail this, but again, that timeline, which I've shown off time and time again, was a huge doozy of an information dump. We just uncovered that First Nations people were also not given fair voting rights. When were women officially recognized as a person in Canadian law? This is a tragic thing to have to learn about our own country's history, but that makes it worth learning as well. So again, I see that word person, I even put it in quotes. So now I'm going to go back to anything that has a person's case mentioned in it. I'm going to go here because I've been here and I know that it's less than having to start all over again on a new page. But again, this information was found on other pages. So the person's case in 1927, 5 women started the person's case in the Supreme Court, but it wasn't until October 18th, 1929, that Lord Chancellor of Great Britain made the decision and the announcement. So October 18th, 1929. Again, I said Canadian law. It's true and it applies, but I do want to remind you that we were still technically just part of the British Empire or the Commonwealth, which meant that Canadian laws often only changed if it was specifically about Canada or if something changed for all of the Commonwealth. So October 18th, 1929. Right, so those are the answers. The big question was an opinion question or a speculating question, so it was more or less your thoughts. But those were the answers for this assignment. If you are using this to check or fix or even start your answers, please make sure that you type full sentence answers for all of them. If you copy and paste what I have put down here, you will not receive full marks. And that is Check Your Understanding Road to the Vote. Thanks for watching.